Hi there everyone! In this video, I'll be showing you how you're going to do your Module 5 activity on facial expressions. So in this video, you'll be seeing here 3 examples. As you can see here, I've created the first keyframe as well as the last keyframe. I've made 3 replicas of this for me to be able to show the 3 examples that I will be using today. For the first example, here on the left, I'll be using more of a standard approach. So when we typically do in-betweening, we tend to have the idea of having looking into the midpoints. So with that one, for example, when we're creating the shape of the head, you can kind of see that for the first keyframe, it's somewhat shorter compared to that of the last keyframe. So for me to be able to find the in-between of the head, what I'll be doing is that I'll be finding that midpoint. And then based from that one, from the circle that I've created, I'll be connecting to create the shape of my face. I would also be doing the same idea for other parts of the face, like let's say when I'm creating the eyes and the mouth. Everything else, particularly when I'm creating the hair, most of the time what I would do there is mostly trace. When I tend to create the final output, what you would see is it's a type of an in-between. However, it's not as dramatic. So it's just a basic shift from one facial expression to the other. When we're making facial expressions, it's really important for you to give the impression of what your facial expression is. So using different in-betweens would actually give you an idea of what the situation is. So for the second example, I'll be using more of another approach. So I'll be using a basic idea of squash and stretch. So in this example, as you can see, I'm making the basic shape of the circle for the head more of an oblong. And I'm starting a bit lower compared to that of the first and then the last keyframe. As you can see also, I'm kind of making the face a bit shorter, but also a bit more longer. So giving it that impression of a squash. Together with that one, I'm making the eyes, the lips, and the nose a bit shorter for me to be able to make sure that it fits part of the face. The hair would also be smaller. And for the hair, what I did right there is that it became much more wavy. So with that one, you can see that it has a bit more impact compared to that of your first and your last keyframe. Almost to the point that it kind of goes out of the other 2 keyframes or the other 2 frames on its sides. So what this does is that this type of squash and stretch kind of in between is that it makes it a bit more dynamic. When you're turning your head or when you're shifting from one facial expression to another, you kind of emphasize that shift instead of just making that gradual in-betweening. So it makes it a bit more dynamic and it makes it a bit more broad, which is really the entire point of making an animation. And then for the last part is that I'll be using a facial expression as an in-between. In this case, I'll be doing more of a puzzled expression rather. For the shape of the head, I'm going to make it kind of the same size as the first keyframe, but a bit smaller. So there's still a little bit of stretch. You won't necessarily see that there, but when we're doing the cleanup, it would be a bit more obvious. Another thing that I've changed is the eyes. So for this one, it's not just making it smaller, it's not just making it bigger, it's making it smaller, but in a way that you can still see the eyes. One important thing right here is that the character is kind of looking straight across, and one important factor is the creation of the eyebrows. For the mouth, I've created something entirely different. I did not look into, let's say, the path of action or anything like that. I've kind of placed it towards the side to emphasize that more puzzled expression that I would like to create. So when you're creating these types of in-betweens, it might be a bit more challenging in terms of creating the path of action. So with this one, I'll have to go towards the right and then back to the left for me to be able to create my mouth. However, it gives it a more dynamic feel compared to that of the first and the second keyframe. What you're trying to give in this situation is that probably this person is kind of puzzled of what's happening. She doesn't believe that what that person might have said is not really happening, but once she has actually seen it, now she's surprised. So Having different types of facial expressions would actually warrant different types of situations. So it would depend on what situation you're doing to what type of in-between you might want to do for facial expressions. With this one, know what your situation is, and then based from that situation, that's how you do the in-betweening for your facial expressions. And with that ends my short lesson on doing this activity. I hope it gave you an idea on how you're supposed to do yours. If you have any questions, you may comment below or through the use of your subject teachers through their social media accounts. Thank you so much, and I hope you stay safe.